welcome everyone, and welcome to Breaking Status Quo. And as many of you all who's attended our sessions before, Julie, Sonia, and Greg are, what do you call them, home faces?
Regulars.
Regulars. And yeah, so today's discussion is going to be on the power of words. And so as a society, all of us, we are very conditioned to talk about our misfortunes, problems, and then we also interpret the events, what's going on, the people around us and ourselves, and we communicate them to the world. And when we communicate those using words, we actually bring them into existence. And it is said that when you focus on your problems, you begin to have more problems. And when you focus on possibilities, you will have more opportunities. So let's start with Julie.
Thanks, Radhika. For me, one of the most wonderful things that I've come to realize, I started fairly quickly and early on in my career to realize that the future starts as words in our minds. Because I believe, and I'm not going to, this would have to be fact checked, but I believe that human beings are the only species who are able to imagine. And that is through the fact that we are able to speak. But the fact that the future starts in our thoughts, and our thoughts are words, is for me one of the most powerful constructs. So imagine if the Wright brothers had said, flying a plane is impossible. As soon as we think that something is impossible, we're not even going to try it because we've told ourselves it's impossible. So that's my first input about words in our minds actually create the future. Our brains are conditioned to only seek out and verify that which we believe. And this is pretty much because there is so much information out there that you can't possibly accept all of this. And so I'm just fascinated by the opportunities we open with words and the opportunities we close down with words, and how powerful kind and gentle words are, because we are all human.
So we not only speak according to our own filter, which is directed by our own belief systems, but we hear according to our own filter as well. And now we see the breakdown in communication from even the communication that's happening in your own head. So from a very personal level, we've all got these different moving parts within us. We've got the very conscious, very logical part of ourselves. We've got the subconscious, we've got the fears, we've got the memories, we've got, exactly like Julie said, our future imaginings. We've got all these little parts within ourselves that communicate with each other. And then, of course, we translate that outside of ourselves. So we communicate with our loved ones, with our work colleagues, with the broader world, etc. And all of that whole system is being filtered and structured according to our own kind of health and our own viewpoint and perspective of the world. So what words were saying, and just to kind of rephrase what Julie was saying, is that words make our intention manifest. They've literally got, what's that saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think that's completely reversed. Words have the power to propel or to absolutely crush. The different forms of communication we also have to look at. So you have obviously verbal communication, written communication. And text messaging, instant messaging, is one of the most destructive things there is, because remember, we're communicating through our filters. We're hearing the tone in our own head. What's important is that the health of the person is always reflected in how they speak. Are they speaking with kindness, with empathy, with understanding? Or are they speaking simply to be right? You know, very few people have the skill, and I think speaking and listening is very much a skill, and they don't have the skill to hear beyond their own triggers.
I think one of the things I often say is we only believe that which makes us happy. Okay, and this means that we don't want to hear something that is contrary to our existing truth. If it doesn't resonate with our belief system, it would make us anxious, and we don't want to feel anxious. We've spoken about that in other sessions. Okay, feel the fear and do it anyway, or replace fear with curiosity. Then I want to dial it back a bit, right down to why was language created? You know, maybe I'll put this out to the panel and say, you know, what is the purpose of language? Can I facilitate like that? Can I ask what was the purpose of language? Why do we think language was developed?
Right. We are social beings. We find purpose through connection. And I would imagine that the means for communication, the birthplace of communication, was an extra form of expression. But the human being is quite complex, because not only do we need to connect, but we also need to connect with those that mimic and reflect our belief systems, right? Which is why we have the cultures and the little groups and we all ascribe to this belief and we all ascribe to that one. So we also want to connect in with where we feel safe, exactly what you're saying, Greg, about that unconscious bias. We don't want to feel excluded. We don't want to feel that we're different, because all of these things are threats to our survival, and it's threats to our ability to connect to another person.
Also the need to differentiate then for protection.
Yeah.
So it's both and. So it's both connection and differentiation. That's how I would imagine it. It's not like it was a conscious thing. Again, haven't studied this, so I would imagine it wasn't a conscious thing, that it came out of the evolution of our what's it, the prefrontal cortex.
It was supposed to allow us to evolve, to increase our knowledge, to be able to share knowledge. Even if we go back to mythical stories of having to destroy language and give everyone different languages again because we got too clever. So language was supposed to make us cleverer. So, instead of drawing a picture of how to go hunt the woolly mammoth, we could actually tell someone, and then we learned how to write it. So language was developed for this. However, language also caused a huge amount of confusion, and it became quite destructive, or based on the fact that our interpretation of language and words is extremely important. Our bodies do not know the difference between reality and imagination, because our body, let's not get too deep here, but our bodies can't think. Okay, so if your brain tells them something, if you say there's a lying in bed and there's a burglar outside, your heart's going to race, you're going to freak out because you've instructed the body. So the body just responds. So if we do not identify or become more conscious or more mindful of where our head is at, we're constantly feeding ourselves a whole lot of possible nonsense, creating a whole ripple effect. Everyone was talking about the external world, but I was thinking more in terms of the internal world. Because it starts with the internal world and then from the internal world into the external world. So,
and you just have to delve half an inch into quantum physics, and you can start to see how truly words contain energy. When you think from a quantum physics perspective, a scientific perspective, everything is energy. We are just bundles of energy that we happen to be able to perceive in a particular wavelength, And so words, everything has an energy. And that brought me to, I'm sure people have seen, both the water experiment,
yes,
the rice experiment. The water experiment was where and I don't remember the chap's name, where words were spoken to water as it was freezing, and then looked at under a scanning electron microscope. And the ice formations, when hateful words were spoken, were all jagged and broken and skewed. And then gentle words and kind words and loving words, the structure of the icicles was circles and Fibonacci series and really rounded forms. I'm getting goosebumps. And then the rice experiment was, I think it's 2 sets of rice, exactly the same, and 1 cup of rice in water was spoken to only with harsh and unkind words, and the other cup of rice was spoken to with only loving and kind words. And at the end of, I think it was 2 weeks, don't quote me, the loving rice was perfect. It was still completely okay. The cup of rice that had been spoken to harshly, the photographs are, it's black, it's gray, it's got fungus growing in it, it's being destroyed. And that's why I agree with you, Sonia, that little saying, sticks and stones, is so wrong. And a lot of the trauma that kids experience, it's based on words and the emotions that those words bring up, which of course then programs those children. All of us, we've all got that pre-programming, and whether it was a positive experience or a negative one, that's how we then view the world, until we choose then to, Greg, as you said, it's that internal world that we need to look at. And I truly believe that that's the foundation of all the mindfulness work that's being done now, all the mind-body connection, and this looking at ourselves as a complete system within these greater systems, connected as human beings by communication, including words.
And what's really interesting, that Julie bringing up the experiments, is that both of them were conducted in water. And as you know, water is a conductor. So now we look at our cells, which of course are made up primarily of water, and how, so, you know, we're talking about the health of words and with children. So we took a look at disease. And disease is dis-ease. So when your body is not functioning properly, and of course there's other factors, what you're putting into it, if you abusing it in terms of bad food and alcohol and all the rest. But the actual cellular health of your being is also very much determined about the quality of your thoughts, because of course that is energy, and that is how you are shaping the molecules and instructing. You know, Greg, you're saying your mind instructs the body in how to function and what to do and how to respond. All of us have triggers. Okay, we've all got wounds that we have to deal with, and the unhealed wounds are triggered a lot. Okay, and we all know when our buttons are pushed, we respond, you know, with an immediate emotional reaction. And now we have the ability to put that emotional reaction into play, to take that pain that we're feeling and to immediately put it out into somebody else, because of course we don't like to feel it ourselves. You know?
So one of the simplest ways around the self-control story that I've often shared, or I remember reading about, is to simply think of a traffic light, the red, yellow, green, and the red being stop and listen, and then the yellow being think, okay, and then respond. And that's a lot slower, but we are so impulsive or reactive, like you said, because of our own wounds, etc. I just want to humbly disagree with Sticks and Stones that words can never harm me. Many, many years ago, when I was interested in understanding curses and all these kind of things and how a curse can be effective, but you have to accept the curse. If you reject the curse, then they can't harm you. If you accept it or integrate you, so unless you haven't, if you've been trained to reject it, if you are a young kid, normally before the age of 6, we've got all these implants and programs that are given to us by our teachers and bullies and all sorts of stuff. So we are programmed normally before the age of 6 or 7, because you're so vulnerable. Someone can say something very simple to you and it gets programmed. So we can, there is a way, but you would need to be taught and become more awake and then get rid of those things.
I'm pretty sure that's why the powers that be created emojis, because it's far easier to convey what you're trying to say through an expression which we can immediately recognize. You don't have to say anything. You can just send an emoji. Happy.
Well, something I want to share, I've been doing running one program quite a lot, where we look at the difference between how much of what we say, and I'm saying say, I don't mean necessarily verbally, can be say in our minds, are assumptions, how much is judgment, and how much is fact. And I am getting more and more stunned by the regularity of the outcomes, no matter what group I do this work with. So, for example, you show somebody a picture and just say, what do you think about this, person? I'm showing you a picture of a person. What do you think about this person? Or it could be a hamburger, or it could be a cow, or whatever. And the rough split I'm getting, and I mean, this is not monitored research, so please don't take this as fact. But the rough split I'm getting is less than 10% of what we observe is fact. And by fact, I mean, would be interpreted the same by anybody from any culture, any background, anywhere in the world. So, and typically, I mean, the one person reflected something very powerful. Our judgments are so seldom positive. Almost never.
Well, they're based on fear, right? They're shaped by fear. We want to avoid fear. That's our primary programming.
Exactly. So think about if the way we're interpreting the world, only this much is fact, for want of a better word. In other words, interpretable in the same way by everybody. That, for me, is the opportunity and the power of words. Because once we can accept that and start to put that pause in place, And by the way, Greg, that robot sign I love. One of the ways I use with clients is the rule of 3, before you respond. So in that moment between reaction and response, breathe in for 3, breathe out for 3.
Yeah, exactly. So actually there's a question from Mfundu, and she's saying, I'm blown away. For a long time I've struggled with affirmations. I would start daily, then within a week I did get frustrated, but now that I'm listening to the speakers, I think I never believe any of the words I'm saying.
Please,
My question is how to align my thoughts with what actually comes out of my mouth.
Okay, if I may, guys. So Greg began this thing. So the problem is that we try and change our thoughts in our mind. And as much as our body is directed by a mind, it takes instruction by a mind. In reality, it is our mind who is being heavily influenced by our body. So all of the emotions dictate the shape of our thoughts. And those emotions are sitting in the body. So all of those triggers, all of that fear, all of those old wounds, all of those old belief systems, right, that are shaping the nature of your thoughts reside in the body. So that is why affirmations are not working for you, because you can sit and you can go, let's think of a common affirmation. I'm good enough. 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 Okay, cool. Your body doesn't believe it. There is no buy-in from the body, because your body's still going, I feel, and feeling is far more powerful than thought, as we've seen it. When that emotional body is triggered, you cannot respond logically. Of course, you guys have to practice that pause moment. But emotion will always trump thought, always. So you have to so affirmations are important, absolutely, but they have to work in conjunction with body work, okay? Feelings. And the way to do that with the feelings, absolutely. And today, the way to do that is to go into your body and feel what hasn't been felt, so that they can stop being triggered all the time. Yeah.
It's a skill to develop, to become curious about your emotions. Because we judge our emotions. I shouldn't be feeling this. And I have learned to have a Q&A session with my body and my emotions. What is the pain telling me? What is that particular feeling about? Where does it come from? What's it trying to tell me? And so it's bringing that curiosity. And because, as we talked about previously, the curiosity and the fear, we try and run away from the fear and the pain until we can become curious about what it's trying to tell us.
Many people, they come and tell me, I'm such an emotional wreck. I'm very emotional. I cry if I'm happy. I cry if I'm sad. Then I tell them, what are you feeling? And they go, I don't know. I'm crying. I'm just crying. Okay. So that, and that's not feeling the emotion. So you have to be able to name the emotion, because there's a word attached and there is science behind it. I recall them doing an EEG on someone, or actually in the MRI scanner, they connect you up. They would put pictures up there, and if it was a snake and you said, oh, I'm happy, instead of saying I'm scared. So when you see the snake, the area lights up in your brain. If you say I'm happy when you're actually scared, that area stays lit until you name the emotion. Then the second step is you have to accept the emotion. When you accept it, the area diminishes. And this is our problem. And I think when we're not naming the emotion, so some people can name them, but we don't want to accept them, then we run away. So as Sonia said, quite rightly, so we need to lean into it and accept it. I think is extremely important. And if we don't do that, the brain releases chemicals into the body, which are emotions. Okay, for example, there's all the scientific terms, but essentially, if you think that person's looking at me funny and making you feel insecure, you're going to get a chemical that goes and releases adrenaline, whatever, into your body. So, and if you don't name it, that chemical goes and sits in the body somewhere and makes you sick in your body.
So, to bring back that, the power of words and how to integrate them and to use them positively, constructively, and with intent within ourselves, and connecting, beautiful what Greg said, connecting the word, naming the word with the emotion, is about raw reality. When we can accept what is. And just the act, I'm sitting there going, okay, this hurts. Okay. Because you're helping your body. We have to think about our body as a scared child, because ostensibly it is. It's always like, am I being under threat? Am I being attacked? That's how our body responds. That's the flight or fight mode. So and everybody needs truth. We need truth. And if you can say, I'm feeling scared, immediately there's a small drop.
Yeah.
Because we've named it,
You
we've
soften.
accepted it, we've recognized it, we've given ourselves the honor of being seen. So our body's like, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. You've named it for me. Thank you. Okay, it's not too bad. I can stay in this feeling for a little bit, right? I'm not going to die, because the body's always like life or death. That's the body. And that is where the skill comes in. And you don't have to stay there for an hour. And maybe at first it's like, okay, well, I managed to name the emotion, but then I freaked out, and then I went and phoned a friend and drank coffee. Cool. Tomorrow, stay for a little bit longer. And when we can get into the practice of feeling authentically, accepting authentically all of our emotions, because they're just there. They're just there. It doesn't mean anything, right? In one human day, we're going through the full gamut of the human emotions. Whether we recognize them or not is different, but we've got that beautiful rainbow. Like, why do you only want to stay in the blue zone? Feel all of it.
We've got to learn and to accept that we're messy.
Yes. I love that.
We're
Raise your free flags.
Imperfectly perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've got to be
Accept
a
our
vessel.
flaws and everything.
Got to flow through us. And exactly, I love what you said, Greg, about holding on, because we hold on. And just to cycle back to the words will never hurt me, I agree with you, they can't, if you have sorted your stuff out.
You've done.
If you haven't sorted your stuff out, those words are going to go in there and they're going to stick. So we let joy flow through us. We don't go to, I'm not going to book a session with Greg and he's going to say, why are you here, Sonia? And I'm going to go, well, I was so happy this morning and now I'm not. And no, we let happiness flow through us. I was so happy this morning, had an awesome, and that's cool. And we keep going. But the uncomfortable emotions, I was going to say bad, but the uncomfortable emotions comes in and we dam it up. We stop it. Of course it's going to get stuck. And of course it's going to start influencing our thoughts, our relationships, our self-worth. Of course it is. It's got nowhere to go. It's, just going to come here. So we've got to let everything flow through us. Don't hold on to it. And messy.
Great.
Oh, I like it. Quickly. As a takeaway for everybody, when you're feeling something you don't want to feel, then go, okay, this is messy human. Right now I'm being messy. It's okay. It's okay. I love that. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks.
You had a question there, Radhika. You said it was a question.
Yeah, and I just also want if Mfundu could tell us if she puts all this into practice, the lady who asked us the question. And the other question's by Anne Pinto, and she says it's difficult at times to hold our words, which are mean and fault-finding, especially when you've been patient for a very long time and then there's no change happening from the other. How to deal with that? I meditate regularly and I'm following spirituality, but it's tough at times. I have the biggest problem with, don't know why, I have the biggest problem with my almost 13-year-old. I wonder if it's karmic. Otherwise, I'm an angel to the world.
Boundaries, right? Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries.
You can't rescue yourself through another person.
Yeah, but one of the things I was going to say, we can only, I think all of us have this external locus, and we try and sort of control the environment when we have to go back to ourselves. And essentially, and this is quite nice because it brings it back to what we're discussing. The only 4 things we can control is our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and our words. What comes out of our mouth. No one has control unless they got a gun to your head or you're in a straitjacket. We have and if you don't, then you need to learn how to. But those are the only 4 things we have. And if we can control that in the environment, and I think this is what Sonia said earlier on, with trying to understand that I'm not my thoughts and feelings, but there's a me, okay, that can utilize my brain, I can utilize my body, and I can utilize the emotions. But when we let our brains control us, and often I talk about the back of the brain. So when we're using future or past, it's always the back of the brain and the memories, and that's our implants and stuff. Then your brain's using you. And I don't know however you want to explain you as a consciousness or soul, higher being, higher self. But the me, when I'm using my brain, I then use this front part, which is the executive functioning. Now I can start using my brain. I need to use my memory, but I must be aware that my memory shouldn't be using me, because then I become impulsive or reactive and allowing all sorts of stuff. But we need to integrate.
I would say for Anne, I think the reason you're struggling with your son is whatever the situation is, he is reflecting a trigger within you. Yeah. So my advice is to go spend some time and write down how he triggers you. So I feel that he's disrespecting me. He's not listening to me. I feel out of control. So write down all the ways in which he's triggering you, right? And then it's not for him, right? You're the mature adult here. It's for you to go within yourself and heal those wounds. because that's why you're being triggered. That's why you can't stop that emotional verbal response with him. So whatever the situation is, his behavior and his response to you is triggering your stuff. So you need to get clear about what that stuff is and work with that.
Yeah, and I think without trivializing it at all, and a 13-year-old son is going to be pushing your boundaries like nothing, because he's working out who he is.
Yeah.
And just to reflect on a couple of words you used there, you said you're meditating and practicing spirituality, but it's tough. And I just want to take what Greg said. Yeah, we're practicing meditation, we're practicing spirituality, and it is still tough. Those things don't mean it's easy. I think most psychologists and spiritual teachers all say, things are going to get worse before they get better, kind of thing. So keep practicing it, and it'll be tough, and it will be better at times. So that's this messiness, and
incorporate the feeling into your meditation.
Yeah, and
don't leave the body out. Incorporate the body into the meditation.
And be kind to yourself.
But start your day on something that's uplifting, that you verbally say out loud. Something to the effect of, I always know that I'm going to do my best. Right? That leaves it open. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do this. Whatever it might be for you. And if you want to do a little experiment, I love this experiment, is go to a mirror, look yourself dead in the eyes in the mirror, and out loud say, I love you. Very few people can maintain eye contact with themselves while saying that. So that's a very cool little practice in the morning. In the morning, look in the mirror and go, I love you. Right? Start your day with love.
Just to add to that, Sonia, I, in one of the courses I did, and I've never done it because it felt so cheesy, but I've explained to a few of my clients to do it, and the response has been phenomenal. So other than saying, or on top of saying, I love you, looking in the mirror, is to give yourself a hug.
Yeah. Oh yeah, self-soothing. I self-soothe all the time. Self-soothing.
The response has been phenomenal. It really does feel nice to hug yourself, because we don't do that. And that's just, again, another topic, Radhika, because it's a great idea about compassion. And we always
self-compassion,
but to be self-compassion. That's extremely important.
Yeah, all of us find it very easy to give love, not so easy to receive love, right? And if we want to receive love, that's how we start shifting.
Thanks, Radhika.
Wonderful.
Wow, so great.
It went
so amazing.
so fast. We could have spoken for another 3 hours, right?
Yeah, this is such an amazing topic. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll summarize this video and we'll share it, and you can share it with your friends.